Hello and welcome to Post Sports Live. I'm Gene Wong. Joining me this morning to discuss all the sports stories that matter most to you in the DMV and around the country is our three-member panel from the Washington Post sports staff, starting with, on the aisle, Mark Maskey, NFL beat reporter, Mike Hume, national sports editor, and Washington Redskins editor, Keith McMillan. These are my NFL guys, so you can tell we're going to dive deep into the NFL draft, but we're also going to cover the Washington Capitals and Washington Wizards. Both of them have advanced to the second round of their respective playoffs. And, of course, we can't forget the fight of the century, Manny Pacquiao versus Floyd Mayweather. But off the top, the NFL showcase event of the offseason begins Thursday. That is, of course, the draft. The Redskins pick 5th. But before we get to the Redskins, Mark, let's just look at the draft overall. And are there any teams that you think may trade out of the first round or trade their first pick?
Well, no, Gene. I mean, it really, trades always come down to the circumstance of who's available at the time the pick comes up. But to me, the entire intrigue of this draft is come when the Titans are on the clock for the second pick. I think most people believe that it will be Jameis Winston going first to Tampa.
Yeah.
That's not a lock. You hear people talking about some wariness within that organization of them making him the #1 pick. But assuming that happens, then you have Tennessee with a huge decision to make.
Yeah.
You know, do they rely on Zach Mettenberger or do they take Mariota? And if they don't take Mariota, does he still go second? Do the Jets move up and take him? Do the Browns move up and take him? Do the Eagles try to make it? That's a long way for the Eagles to go from 20.
Well, we know they love him,
do
right?
they make a play for it? So to me, that's really the pick to watch. That's really where most of the intrigue of this draft focuses on.
Well, what you're thinking on that, Mike? Are there teams that are looking to get out of the first round or the first pick?
Well, I don't know if they're going to look to get out of the first round, but a team that always seems to be on the move one way or the other is the New England Patriots.
Sure.
Bill Belichick is a master of getting draft value, and he'll trade up to try and capitalize on a player that's falling a little bit too far, trade back when that player isn't available. So I see the other end of the draft after number 2, the 32 might make a trade too. And then the Washington Redskins, if there's anything they need picks. They need quality and quantity, and if they can get the right offer, I think they probably want to move back.
Well, Keith, we've obviously seen movement a lot in the draft right up to the minute of the first pick. Do you see any teams making moves in the first round?
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of movement. The last couple of years, the movement started, the surprises have started as high as number 3.
Yeah.
So I think, as Mark said, you probably see some movement very high up in the draft. If not at 2, it'll be in the top 5. I think the Redskins are good chance to move back. I think Cleveland is the team to watch because they have the 2 first-rounders, 12 and 19,
Sure.
and they have a need at quarterback. Talk about, Mike, New England being able to move back. I think Seattle's in the same group way at the bottom, not a high pick, and they have a quarterback, so they don't necessarily need to get up. The teams that need quarterbacks or the teams that have big needs, I think, are the ones that you'll see trying to make big moves on draft day.
Yeah, there's certainly, well, Tennessee, as Mark mentioned, needs a quarterback, and Cleveland does too, so we'll keep an eye on that. But now we talked about teams, let's get to certain players that may make impacts right away. Keith, I'll come back to you on that. Is there a player or two that stands out that could be impact right away for their teams?
I mean, I think it's almost as much about fit as the player. I think when you get to this point, everybody taken at the top of the draft has talent, but it's also who has a need, who can be plugged in right away. I think, if you find someone like Amari Cooper and he lands with the Bears at number 7, that's probably someone who can make an impact right away. We saw last year wide receivers make a huge impact, several rookies. You remember 5 years ago, it used to be you give receivers a couple years to make an impact because they never made impacts as a rookie. Now it's sort of the complete opposite. And I think if you find someone, Kevin White to the Raiders would be another one. Those 2 guys, those receivers at the top, and teams have big needs at playmaker, and we know wide receivers can do a lot of damage.
They can. Mike, obviously, a wide receiver deep draft, is that the position you're looking at, a player that can make an impact right away?
In terms of fit, we were talking before, I think the best possible fit would be any of the top running backs that land with the Dallas Cowboys and that offensive line.
Yeah.
I mean, whoever gets there, that's a sweet job because that line is effective, it's massive. They have the need with DeMarco Murray gone.
Yeah.
That is a position where I could see.
You don't trust Darren McFadden?
No, a little less so. So I see whoever gets that job, if it is a rookie, look for them to make an impact right away. Melvin Gordon or Todd Gurley, obviously coming off the ACL injury, a little bit of an unknown. I think a running back in the first round probably has less of a learning curve as well, even in the modern pass-first offense of today's NFL.
Well, Mark, these guys talked about offensive players. Are there defensive players that can make impact right away in the draft?
You know, I think when you look at this draft, you're going to talk about the pass rushers and whether they can come in right away and fill that need for whatever team they're on. I mean, Dante Fowler is going to go very high in this draft. I think he's a guy that can come right in and get to the quarterback right away.
Yep.
We'll see which of the other guys. You know, Shane Ray, where's he going to go now with this incident this week, right before the draft? The worst timing of an incident that you possibly can have. But, you know, no matter where he goes, I think he's a guy that can come in and make an impact. Gregory, where does he go? Can he come in and make an impact? Beasley, a guy that could be there when the Redskins are picking fifth. If they take him, can he come in and make an immediate impact as a pass rusher? Bud Dupree. So there are a lot of guys who are going to be taken very early in this draft as pass rushers and are going to be counted on to come in and be guys that can get sacks, get to the quarterback. I think several of them are capable of. They certainly won't all pan out to make an immediate impact, but that's another position where you can expect that.
Right. Well, let's move on to the Redskins now. They have the number 5 pick in the draft. Keith, I'll start with you as the Redskins editor. Are they going to stay at 5? Are they going to trade? Are they going to try to go after Mariota? What's their strategy, do you see?
I've been a trade back guy from jump. I think that their needs, and I know not everybody drafts for need. You want to draft for best player, and if maybe
that's what Scott McLuhan said,
right,
drafted best player
if
there.
If maybe
right?
Leonard Williams falls to them at number 5, maybe he's too good to pass up. But outside of that, they really have a strong need on the offensive line. A couple of the top line prospects are kind of guard, tackle, tweeners, so you don't need to necessarily burn a 5 on them.
Right.
I think, and McLuhan said it on Monday in his press conference, he said, I'd like to get 10 picks in this draft. They got 7 now. So, you know, the most valuable chip to get some more picks is that number 5. Maybe he moves back a few picks, is still able to draft somebody like Brandon Scherf, like La'el Collins, one of the top offensive linemen, and pick up some extra picks in the 2nd or 3rd round.
Mike, what do you see happening with the Skins at 5? Or are they not going to be at 5 come draft day?
I agree with Keith.
Yeah.
I think they probably look to trade back first, and if they don't get the offer, they're going to end up with a pretty good player. I mean, if they get Dante Fowler there, they get the edge rusher they need. If they can get a guy like Leonard Williams who falls down, they get another guy for the defensive front, which, I mean, they have needs everywhere. So they really can't go wrong too much. But I think first and foremost, you look to trade back. You look to address more needs with multiple picks.
They did address their needs a little bit on the defensive line and in the secondary in the offseason, right? Mark, does that have impact what they're going to do at 5?
No, I mean, this team has so many needs.
Yeah.
I mean, you just need to get players. That's what Scott McLaughlin's going to do. And look, I think everything that's been said has been right, but in order to trade back, you have to have someone that's willing to trade up.
Yeah, you need a partner, exactly.
And there has to be the player there. If Leonard Williams falls, if Dante Fowler falls, if someone wants one of the wide receivers, you know, if Mariota falls. So we have to see who's there. Clearly the Redskins would like to trade back if they can do it. If they can't, the pick that makes most sense to get the value out of the 5th pick is probably one of the pass rushers. If Fowler is there, maybe Beasley, that might be a little bit of a stretch for him, but pass rushers, if they pan out, are worth the value of the 5th pick. So that's probably the way they go if they're not able to trade down.
Well, it's always intriguing to watch what the Skins do on draft day, so we'll definitely keep an eye on that. But now to another move that they made on Monday. You referenced this, Keith. Scott McLuhan had a press conference to talk about picking up the option, the 5th-year option on Robert Griffin's contract. Mark, how does that impact the draft, if at all?
You know, I don't think it impacts it at all. I mean, we heard Scott McLuhan say even after that, if Mariota falls to them, they would take him. You know, I don't know that I believe that. I think that's what you have to say to preserve the trade value of that pick. You know, I think exercising the option on Griffin, everybody has to keep in mind is guaranteed for injury. It's not guaranteed for performance. They haven't obligated themselves at this point to paying Robert Griffin over $16 million 2 years from now. They've given themselves a chance to see if he plays in a manner that lives up to that salary. But in terms of its impact on the draft, I think if Griffin plays well enough, you know, he's your quarterback of the future. If you were to take a Mariota, which I don't think will happen, Griffin is no longer your quarterback of the future, so it impacts him in that way. But, you know, I just don't see that scenario playing out. I think Mariota probably goes to someone before the Redskins get to pick, and they don't even have to make that decision.
Well, Keith, we know about Griffin's injury history. Does picking up that option make a difference in that Mariota could be a fallback if Griffin does get hurt this year?
Well, I don't think the option makes a big difference, and primarily for this reason. Scott McLuhan is new here. He's not married to any of these guys who are on the roster, save for the few that he brought from his previous stops in Seattle and
San Francisco.
the 49ers, right, in free agency this year. But he's basically said, I want to remake this roster. And a lot of us, as we watch this, we'll look at the draft for what needs does a team have this year. A guy who's in the GM chair is looking down the line, wants to draft somebody that's going to be here for at least 4 seasons, hopefully longer than that, maybe into a second contract. So I think he's just trying to add talent as much as he can, and that's also why I think trading back is pretty likely.
Mike, does the timing of this announcement make a difference to you in terms of how it impacts the draft? Is it unusual, do you think, or no?
No, I think if anything, it takes a little bit of the wild card out of the equation by announcing it before the draft. They didn't have to make this decision until after. So by saying it now, I think it makes their declaration a little bit more clear that they're not thinking about a quarterback in this draft. Because if you go with Mariota, you're probably going to have to trade up. You have so many needs. Can you afford to part with the assets to get Mariota in the first place? And then once you have him on board, you're back on the roller coaster again. It's fraught with danger. I think they go elsewhere.
Well, draft starts Thursday, it's 3 days. NFL, of course, loves to make their showcase event in the offseason, so we're all going to be watching. I know we're all also going to be watching to see who the Washington Wizards draw in the second round of the NBA playoffs. It's going to be either Atlanta or Brooklyn. The series tied at 2-2. Keith, the Wizards coming off a sweep, the first in history, first 7-game sweep in franchise history. What's the ceiling for this team in the playoffs now?
Well, I think it's changing almost by the night.
Yeah.
Every time you watch a game, you know something different is happening. You see Kevin Love get hurt for the Cavaliers. You see some of Atlanta's best guys banged up. As you mentioned, they're tied with Brooklyn as we record this. So, and the Bulls is probably the other wild card team in the mix. And Derrick Rose is still getting his feet under him, although he seems to be playing pretty well.
Yeah.
Also, if you factor in that a week ago or 2 weeks ago, we probably thought the Wizards were marked for a first-round exit. They played exceptionally well against Toronto, and they kind of maxed out that they showed everything we thought they maybe could be. When they brought Paul Pierce in, when they added all these pieces around John Wall and Bradley Beal. So I think their ceiling is probably Eastern Conference Finals at this point, but it really depends who they play from here. If they get Brooklyn, that's good news for them.
Yeah.
And then I think you see what happens between the Cavaliers and the Bulls, and they could be out in the next round. They could be in the finals.
Mike, do you see the Eastern Conference Finals in the Wizards' future?
I mean, that's probably their ceiling, right?
Yeah.
I think they have a lateral ceiling that's sort of west of the Mississippi. Whoever comes out of the West would clearly be favored over them.
Certainly.
But in the East, there's no one there that really stands out as a clear favorite. I mean, the Cavaliers are now a little bit of a wild card with Kevin Love missing time with a dislocated shoulder.
Yeah.
I mean, the Hawks look beatable. The Bulls look beatable. The Bucks have played them really tough. I mean, there's nothing that suggests this Wizards team, as they're playing right now, can't reach the Eastern Conference Finals or even the NBA Finals if they continue to play like this. Now, can they continue to play like this?
That's a big hit.
Well, yeah, Mark, they are playing the best basketball at the right time. Do you see them advancing deep in the Eastern Conference?
I mean, the ceiling is the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
I mean, the caveat here is, look, this is the JV league. We're talking about the Eastern
We are,
Conference.
yes.
There's probably not a single team in the Eastern Conference that could get out of the first round in the Western Conference. But all the points have been made. The Hawks, as a number 1 seed, you looked at them as vulnerable even before the playoffs started. And now Horford's been hurt. They're struggling in that series. You look at the Cavaliers without Love. The two best teams and most complete teams right now are the Wizards and the Bulls. We've seen Derrick Rose come back and look like Derrick Rose again, but how long does that last? How much do you trust that? But right now, those are the two best and most complete and most dangerous teams in the Eastern Conference, simply because of health and the level of play right at this moment.
I mean, I still think Cleveland has got a great shot because when you have LeBron, obviously that one guy can take over in the playoffs. But one guy who's taking over for the Wizards, Mike, is Paul Pierce. I mean, how much of a difference has that guy made? He had season lows during the season in points, minutes, and rebounds, but clearly they were saving him for this time of the year.
Well, I don't even know if his biggest contribution has been with his performance, as so much as the psychological boost he's given this team. He really called out everyone going into this series against the Raptors, and he's gotten the most out of them. Like, he's a great motivator. He probably won Game 7 for the Caps last night. Let's be honest. Like,
he was in the building, right? Yeah.
He was cheering him on. The crowd went wild. I mean, the guy's a motivator. It's what he does.
And Otto Porter, Keith, how about his performance? How much has that helped this team, right?
Yeah, I mean, there were some moments during the year where you wondered if they were ever going to get the value from Otto Porter. There was the defensive lapse that became a main.
Yeah, that was a huge viral thing on the internet.
But when you sat down and watched him play, I think he has confidence now, and that's probably partly attributable to Paul Pierce. And I think there are several guys on the Wizards roster now that weren't playing with confidence the month or two before the playoffs that are very confident after this series.
One of the other tenants at Verizon Center playing with a lot of confidence after a Game 7 win is the Washington Capitals. They get by the Islanders 2-1. Evgeny Konechov with a great goal to win it for him. You know, Keith, this team do you consider them a legitimate contender now, given that they've gotten out of the first round and have a lot of confidence?
Yeah, I don't know if they're any more of a contender really than they were yesterday, except for that factor.
Yeah.
Now that they've got this monkey off their back in terms of getting through a Game 7, the way they've played defensively in Game 7. What did the Islanders have, like 11 shots, some like ridiculously
ridiculous.
low number like that? There was, even when the game was tied, you kind of hold your breath only because it's tied, but not like the Islanders were really getting very many good shots off, and the Caps were sort of flinging them at the net and just weren't getting their goal. And when Kuznetsov got that one, I think the place lit up, and I think that they're playing with confidence now. They've played the Rangers so many times during the season, so I think it's kind of wide open. Not very different than the basketball side of things, to be honest with you. But you probably watch Caps more than I do. So
well, yeah, Mike, is this a different Caps team? Is this a Caps team that can make a run in the playoffs, or is this the same group we've seen before?
Oh, it's definitely a different team.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the style they're playing. They're hitting people left and right. I mean, they knocked 3 defensemen for the Islanders out of that first round series. They keep playing that heavy hockey, which is what Barry Trotz has been preaching since he's been here. That's a style that has been productive in the playoffs for other teams like the Chicago Blackhawks, like the Los Angeles Kings, who have won recent Stanley Cups, Boston Bruins. If they can get by the Rangers, there's no team left in the playoffs that they can't beat, because the Rangers are the best team left.
Mark, what do you see happening for the Caps? I mean, is this a team that has a high ceiling too? Like
this might be a different, but how many times have we heard this is a different team? This is a different year.
We have.
It still says Capitals. It's still the Capitals in the
core
playoffs.
three is still there:
I mean,
Ovechkin, Backstrom, Green.
If anybody was watching Capitals over the years was watching last night, and the third period starts, and they give up the tying goal, and then
On a soft, on a trickler, right?
On a shot that should be saved,
Yeah.
and then they don't put the puck in on an open net.
Yeah.
I think you saw the same old Capitals. I don't think if anyone thought at that point they were going to come back and win after watching the Capitals over the year, I think it's still, prove it to me. I mean, this is we've seen this before. Let's see it come out a little differently this time.
Mike, my question would be, the Capitals certainly won the series. Great win for them. They have a lot of confidence. But the Islanders were so shorthanded. They were missing their best defenseman, 2 other defensemen. Another guy in Game 6 was out for 10 minutes, and they still couldn't put him away. What does that say about the team? Or do you throw that away now that they've advanced?
You throw it away because you're starting fresh, but it's also a very different challenge they're going to face with the Rangers. The Rangers are much deeper defensively. Dan Girardi is going to be out there against Alex Ovechkin every shift. The secondary pair for the Rangers is going to be much more experienced, much more veteran than the Islanders had. So the challenge is definitely a lot different. You throw it out a little bit because it is a fresh series. They are familiar opponents with the Rangers, but this Caps team, they have a different style about them that I think is more relentless. After they win in Game 7, they would have been jumping around in the past. Locker room last night was pretty tranquil, pretty calm, even keel. After winning a game that, as Mark pointed out, they lose that game all the time.
They do. Well, let's move on to boxing. The fight of the century, by everyone's account, Manny Pacquiao versus Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather looking to stay undefeated. Manny Pacquiao looking to pull off the biggest victory of his career. Obviously, the 2 best fighters of their generation. Keith, are you paying the $100 to watch this game? Do you think that casual sports fan is going to do that for this fight?
Well, I probably would. I think I'm going to be out watching it with a group.
Yeah.
But I probably would. And I remember saying to myself, as these 2 guys sort of ducked each other or came up with excuses to not fight each other over the years.
Yeah.
And every fight fan has an opinion over who was ducking who or whose fault it was.
Sure.
But the last time I bought a fight was De La Hoya Mayweather, and it was $54.95.
That was the highest pay-per-view fight in history.
Right, but it was $54.95, and now it's $100.
So $90 and $100 in HD.
Right. I mean, if you want the standard def, you can save the $10.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is one of those fights where if you don't watch it, everybody's going to be talking about it Sunday and Monday, and you're kind of going to be left out of the loop. So everybody feels like they're going to have to find a way to see it if they don't pay the $100. I think fight fans, hardcore, medium.
They're in. Oh, they're in. Yeah.
Right. We've been waiting for this one for a long time.
Both of the hardcore fight fans left in the country are in.
Me and Keith. That's
But remember when like Tyson and Holyfield were supposed to fight in '91, and it took till '97 for them to fight. This is kind of that same scenario for boxing fans who've been waiting to see this match for a long time.
Mike, do you have friends who are casual sports fans who are going to rushing to pay $100 for this?
No, absolutely not. I mean, the casual fans aren't going to be the ones buying this.
Yeah.
But the casual fans have friends who have, like, one or two friends who are hardcore fight fans, like you guys, who are going to pay that $100, who are going to get the fight, and they're going to have really good nacho cheese dip and have everyone over and charge $10
I want to be invited
a head.
to that place.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's great. So I think that's the sort of party atmosphere you're looking at. And will it rejuvenate the sport? I don't think so, because who's next after this fight?
Sure.
What's the next great fight?
Rematch, a Pacquiao-Mayweather rematch, right?
When they're in walkers. I mean, like, this is they're old now. They're not getting younger. The next generation just doesn't seem to be there. So, how much does that casual interest really matter in the long
Mark,
run?
there's certainly a lot of hype and build up to this event. Is that going to be enough to get the casual fan to plop down that much money for
You know what I mean? Boxing has become largely irrelevant on sort of the national sports landscape.
Yeah.
But there's nothing like a big fight.
There's not.
There's not the feel of a big fight. There's really still
Also, my favorite thing to cover is a big prize fight.
Right, absolutely.
It's the
So
greatest.
no, I think there'll be electricity. I think there's buzz. I think there's build up. I think you will see very good pay-per-view numbers. This has become an event, not on a Super Bowl level of an event, but an event that people know about, are looking forward to. I think they'll do very well. I mean, obviously the fighters will do very, very well, but I think the pay-per-view numbers will be very respectable, even at those prices. You will draw people in. You will draw in, I don't even say the casual sportsman, you will draw in the hardcore sports fan who's not necessarily a boxing fan. You will get those people, and you will make a lot of money, which is exactly what they're. But in terms of reviving the overall sport of boxing, no, I think boxing only exists now for these huge events.
It's a niche
for
sport
everyone
now.
else. It's a niche sport. You have the diehards, but for everyone else, it's going to be these huge events that come along every few years at the most.
Yeah, MMA's rise also is cut into boxing also. I'm sure that that's a whole other episode. But guys, thanks so much for your input. We're all going to be watching the NFL draft. It's a busy weekend. Kentucky Derby, NFL draft, Mayweather, Pacquiao. So it's a sports cornucopia coming up on Saturday. But thanks for joining us today on Post Sports Live. Remember to follow us on Twitter at Post Sports Live. For Mark Maskey, Mike Hume, and Keith McMillan, I'm Gene Wong. We'll see you next time.